we are kicking off the next season of the podcast. Happy new podcast season, Nate.
Happy new podcast season. Is it season 3 or is it season 4, Tyler?
It sure as hell feels like season 4 to me, but I'm aware that we aimed for the prior season to be a partial season, although I think we came out to 19 episodes, which is the shortest season, whether it's a partial season or not for us.
Numbers wise, it is a partial season. In terms of the time it took us to produce it, it was a whole season.
Mm.
I think we should stay faithful to what we committed to people and say this is an actual season 3, as the previous season was just kind of a bleeding over of the same game series into another.
Yeah, that's right. So for anybody new joining us for the podcast here for Expedition 33, this is, of course, the Hero with 1,000 Potions podcast. I'm Tyler, and I'm joined by my friend Nate.
I am Nathaniel.
We've got 27 episodes of Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, 34, I think it was, or maybe it was 37 of Final Fantasy VII Remake and Original, where we're comparing and contrasting the two games from the 1997 original release to the remake that came out about 5 years ago. And then when we talk about Season 2.5, we talk about the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth episodes that we did earlier this year and throughout last year. That was about 19 episodes. And here we are again with the following season. I'm so excited to kick this off with you, Nate.
Yeah, I'm so excited to play Dragon Quest 11 with you, Tyler.
We ran through a couple of final contenders. Well, I guess I don't know if Dragon Quest 11 was a final contender, but I did explore it for a while, and I thought the gameplay loop wasn't very engaging. I thought it was maybe it seems to be more for a simpler RPG experience, but I think you and I craved something more in depth, and it, as far as I could tell after maybe 8 hours in, wasn't providing it.
What's the quote from Star Wars? A billion souls all crying out and being silenced all at once, or something like that when they use the Death Star. I forget the actual quote. But I feel like saying that about Dragon Quest is a billion nerds crying out and being silenced all at once.
Could make for a good travelogue, but we'll see.
Right. It needs some spice to it.
It needs some spice. And again, for the new listeners, we don't just do the video game book club like content. Nate has video projects on YouTube. Visit us at Gunblade Guys on YouTube. And we have travelogues where Tyler here journals his way through a video game and then shares his comments and thoughts and stream of consciousness sort of feedback and an audio essay sort of format that is different than our typical shared content here as we march through Expedition 33 and a variety of other one-off episodes.
You'll get to hear all about Tyler's genocidal tendencies where he murders his party members for his own benefit.
I only murdered one party member for my benefit.
There will be more travelogues though, so we'll see.
Yeah, still seeking inspiration for the next one. Romancing Saga 3 was the one he's referencing. That took a lot.
Yeah.
What else should we talk about for ourselves before we get into things?
We have a branding nightmare going on where we have a podcast that is called one thing, but we have begun calling ourselves professionally something else in another place. So Hero with 1,000 Potions podcast, but as a content creating unit that is not always just a podcast, we call ourselves the Gunblade Guys. And that is a short little ditty based on how we met and became friends. It boils down to we had the same Cypher action figure from Final Fantasy VIII, and
yes,
that was one of those moments where a light bulb went on and we're like, oh, this guy, he fucks.
He's a real one.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we thought Gunblade Guys, very appropriate for the overarching umbrella incorporated for our brand. But this little ditty here is the Hero with 1,000 Potions podcast, because the Hero with 1,000 Faces kind of involves analyzing, telling stories, etc., the structure of things. And so we thought this podcast could kind of lean into that a little bit, but in a more nerdy light.
That's exactly right, Nate. Hero with 1,000 Faces is a mythology textbook by Joseph Campbell, famous mythologist, who described the unimyth, the monomyth. He's recognizing that cultures worldwide and through human history all kind of tell the same legends, tell the same stories in oral history, and they hit the same sort of beats, which they call the monomyth or the hero's journey. And the name of the podcast is a riff on that book. And it also kind of leans into the whole like principle of sometimes you get to the end of the game and you've got 1,000 potions or elixirs or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a wink and a nod in a couple different directions, which is what makes it such a neat title, or at least I think so. Should we get into it?
Let's rock and roll, dude.
Let's rock and roll, Nate. Okay, so again, after much deliberation, Nate and I arrived at covering Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, for this season of the podcast. And I'm interested in going over a little development history, setting the tone of the game, and talking a little about the release. I think I'll start with the release, actually, even though it's at the bottom of my notes here, Nate. It came out on April 24th, 2025 for the PlayStation 5, Windows, Xbox Series X/S, and sold 1 million copies in its first week.
Damn.
Another million copies in its second week. And as of October 2025, which is 5.5 months since that release, Expedition 33 has sold more than 5 million copies. The reviews are absolutely aglow about it, talking about depth of gameplay, depth of story, tone, and the realism of the characters, and in an unusual angle for the RPG universe, it is rooted in a French historical context, because this is a French developer, Sandfall Interactive.
Something that interesting to note, too, is this is yet another title, I'd say very similar to Baldur's Gate 3, where upon its development and, kind of hearing the buzz about it, people were, another slow turn-based game. And then you'd see trailers of Spider-Man 2 where he's like kick flipping through a building and flying all over the place, and there's 9 guys trying to beat on him at one time, and everybody's like, how are these turn-based RPGs going to succeed in this market? And then they come out and they just absolutely blow the doors off the place in terms of sales. So obviously RPGs are not dead yet. It has not gone the way of disco.
I'm so glad you said that, because part of what contributes to the gravity of this game's success is that it participates in a dialogue that developers and gamers worldwide are having with one another about whether or not turn-based combat is relevant, interesting, sells well in 2025 here. And so you and I know that developers that we've loved for a very long time, or maybe continue to, Square Enix particularly, have turned their back on turn-based combat. But in recent years, we've seen a lot of smashing success with modern high-quality turn-based RPGs like, as you said, Baldur's Gate 3, Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D Remake, Romancing Saga 2, Revenge of the Seven. But it isn't just that Expedition 33 contributing to this conversation about turn-based RPGs, it blew the doors open and disproved the idea because it was such a smashing success, because it was a freshman effort for a new developer, which just blew everybody's hair back in terms of the success. They have shifted the tectonic plates of what constitutes appealing gameplay systems in RPGs, and they only just arrived on the scene in terms of publishing a game a little more than 6 months ago.
Right.
It's crazy.
It's a good sign too, because there's a lot of things in the mainstream world that as you and I get older, I mean, you're at that big 40 number. I've not quite achieved such heights, but a lot of things about the world that it feels like we get left behind, or the whatever media we used to engage in is no longer for us. I kind of feel that way about music. It's hard to find good music that still embodies what I'm looking for out of it. But it seems like gaming is this space where, as much as it tries to do all of these new fancy things to pull in the youths, and we've got everyone trying to be Fortnite, you have like things like Concord that release and shutter its doors a week later, utter failures as they try and chase new trends. And then you have these essentially things, they're not classics, they're new games with a new perspective, with every presentation bell and whistle you can think of, but they play and hearken to and are inspired by the classics in meaningful ways. And it's like, okay, well, this doesn't feel like those other spaces of my life where it's like, I just feel like a dinosaur,
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. As mentioned, Sandfall Interactive is a French developer. The story begins with Guillaume Broche, who is the CEO and creative director of Sandfall. It was a former employee of Ubisoft who left during COVID and then formed the development team that would go on to become Sandfall Interactive. The development team grew to about 30 folks, and then they partnered with Expedition 33's publisher Kepler Interactive to secure funding to continue their work. And I'm going to read verbatim the mission statement of Sandfall Interactive that I found on their website. I'm not going to riff on this. I'm just going to read it straight up here. Founded in 2020 in France, Sandfall Interactive is a video game studio developing premium 3D games for PC and new-gen consoles. We believe the latest game-making technologies now make it possible for indie teams to deliver outstanding production value in a realistic 3D graphics style. With a focus on single-player experiences, we want to deliver incredible stories with intriguing characters in gorgeous fantasy worlds. We build the best pipelines we can to achieve this goal while keeping the creativity and agility of small teams.
Small teams, imagine that.
I also looked up the website of the publisher, Kepler Interactive, and I suppose it depends on the power of your machine, but that webpage lagged out my laptop because it autoplays a billion GIFs of games I presume it publishes, but provides no context to what you're looking at, kind of like a You're the Man Now dog. Nate, do you know what a You're the Man Now dog is?
Absolutely. The only question I have is, does their website start autoplaying a track by My Chemical Romance as you enter as well?
No, you'll have to manage that yourself on another program.
Damn.
Yeah. It's a little overwhelming. Yeah, and I'm not here to disparage Kepler. It seems like the Kepler found its niche in publishing games by doing a sort of like a revenue sharing program where they're all owners or something like that. Pretty neat.
Sounds ethical. I'm just going to look up, let's see what Saudi prince or Chinese trillionaire owns it. Oh, UK. Interesting. That's weird.
Hereditary monarchy.
Yeah.
Cool. So looking at the Sandfall Interactive website, the team is 32 folks strong. There are 6 in design. And I'm going to name some names because we're going to orbit their creative worlds here. CEO and creative director Guillaume Broche, who, by the way, looks a lot like our main character. We'll talk about that when we get to him. Who cites Final Fantasy VIII as his favorite game, Nate.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. Okay. Look, you see that the team of 32 hyperlink in the notes. If you click that, you'll go to little headshots and short abstracts of each team member, and they all name their favorite game or games. And the CEO and creative director of Expedition 33 names Final Fantasy VIII as his favorite game. Nate, how does that make you feel?
It's just more of the connective tissue of the Gunblade Guys brand. We were called by God to tap into the creation of a kindred spirit and bathe in that same creative energy that brought us here to the podcast mic today.
Yeah, that's right.
Looking at some of these other creators, though, their favorite games, I mean, I feel like we're in good hands here.
What else are you seeing? Let me hear you.
One thing I was going to say, we'll get into kind of the mechanics of the game later, because it's a turn-based RPG. But I was going to make a joke about how a lot of modern games love to borrow things from fighting games these days. And the idea of the perfect dodge, perfect parry system, that's in action games. But one of the first games to do a in-depth time-based parry system was Street Fighter 3 in a meaningful capacity. And one of their creators here has Street Fighter 6 listed as their favorite games. So I'm seeing that. And then their game designer has Kingdom Hearts 2, Final Fantasy 8, and Metal Gear Solid 5 listed as their favorite games. Oh, one thing we should mention too is we are going back to our format of playing a game blind.
Yes.
Final Fantasy 7 was not that. This is a blind playthrough. That was our first season, was Xenoblade. And we had absolutely no clue what the fuck was going on or what was going to happen. And we went through meticulous efforts to try and not spoil ourselves either as we worked on that title. So we're going to be doing the same thing here. But I'm going to wonder if this guy loves Metal Gear Solid 5, are we going to get, I'm not going to say like hundreds of bad side quests. I'm going to say dozens of very creative ways of using our game mechanics outside of the primary story. Because I think that Metal Gear Solid 5 is a masterclass on that. You have your primary story, and then you have your side activities which beg you to play the game differently or use every tool in the toolbox. So I'd be excited if that happens with this game.
I also want to point out the composer
Right.
Lauriane Testard, and there's a lead vocalist on file as well, Alice Duport-Percier. And because, as evidenced by however much gameplay we played so far, I know you and I have done on the prologue, and we haven't talked about it yet, but an unknown amount of Chapter 1, the music is very symphonic and emotionally powerful, and usually has a lead female vocalist. I believe that's Alice here. And it reminds me of the Nier Replicant original soundtrack, which also strongly featured ambient, angelic female voices. But I have a feeling we're going to be throwing ourselves at the feet of this composer and vocalist by the end of our season here. And so I'm going to get a heads up to acknowledge and appreciate Lauriane Testard, composer for Expedition 33.
Right.
So there's 6 for design, 4 in programming, 4 art and environments, 7 character art, VFX and cinematics, 5 managing audio, and then 6 in production and operations, inclusive of a dog named Monaco, the resident happiness manager.
HR is not there to protect you. They're to protect the company. But I don't know. I can trust that a dog's purpose there is to actually support my happiness and well-being.
Props to Monaco. Moving on here, I want to talk about the setting, Nate, because Sandfall Interactive make no bones about that this is an RPG set in a variation of their home country.
Right.
And in fact, the first city that we're in has a lot of the landmarks of Paris. And we're going to see that right away as soon as you hit, start game, right? According to an interview with Sandfall Interactive co-founder and lead programmer Tom Guillarmin, I did not look up the pronunciation for that, which was published on UnrealEngine.com, Expedition 33's setting is inspired by a period of French history called Belle Époque, or the Beautiful Era. Didn't look up the pronunciation for that either, but Belle, we all kind of know Belle means beauty, and Epoque, well, that sounds like epic, and why shouldn't that translate to era? This era is fondly idealized in French pop culture as a golden age of French history and as an era of peace, prosperity, high fashion, technological innovations, and Art Deco sensibilities. This time was bookmarked between 2 bloody wars: the Franco-Prussian War, which ended in 1871, to the outbreak of World War I in 1914. That would make the Belle Époque a span of 43 years. And let us also acknowledge that the title of the game, the actual phrase, Clair Obscur, is a reference to a movement in fine art that the English-speaking world knows better as chiaroscuro, which emphasized bold contrasts between light and darkness. Chiaroscuro has its roots in ancient Greece, but has a history of bubbling up again throughout time, and here it is again in the Golden Age of France. The architecture is going to look like the idealized version of this Golden Age of France. That's going to come out everywhere, or at least it does in the prologue, and I guess it's yet to be said as we travel through the landscape of the rest of the game. That's open for interpretation, I suppose. But it's very, very apparent what world, well, now that we know what we're talking about when we refer to the Belle Époque, doing a little research, you recognize that the buildings look like this because it's reflective of how people idealized that time of France. Or maybe it did really. Maybe there were streamers running across every building in downtown and so on.
And I'm going to chime in here with my Bachelor of Fine Arts degree, who had to take many a art history class. I could be wrong, but I believe it's chiaroscuro, or like said more elegantly than even I can pronounce it.
Please correct me. I need all the help I can get, man.
It's not like church. But I could be wrong. Maybe my teacher was a complete idiot. And then furthermore, it's also of interest to me, how beautiful this game looks and sounds and everything is. One thing we learned is, as much as the common world knows France for their bloody democratic revolutions of sorts, we as art history buffs know that France has a long history of wanting to establish itself as the cultural epicenter of Europe when it comes to being the best at doing art and expressing oneself and being seen as like this intellectual hub of the continent. Almost like that was a war they were waging in and of itself, of when some art movement would come out of another country, France would have to step in and like one up it, which ended up creating a lot of both in like architecture to straight up like furniture design and stupid things like that. There was a lot of what we would consider like Baroque, ornate, overly decorative works because they were always trying to be more extravagant than their neighbor in some capacity whenever they would see like, oh, they're doing this, well, we're going to do this. And so a epicenter of arts for hundreds and hundreds of years that they prided themselves on. So maybe a little bit of that pedigree being carried through here again.
Let me ask you, Nate, what system are you playing this game on?
I am on my personal computer via Steam.
Cheers. I am playing this game also on Steam, but through my Steam Deck.
Okay.
Which is not yet perfectly optimized, I must admit. There are some texture unusualness going on, particularly with NPCs' hair. Funny enough, suddenly someone that might have lovely dark brown hair has gray hair, and not like just a single color, but like still very textured, but gray.
Right.
That's the biggest thing that pops out to me. I'd love to see a patch come out that is optimized for Steam Deck, and it doesn't particularly bother me. I don't think it impacts my ability to comment on the game. If something does, I'll switch, of course. I'm interested in fidelity, but if it isn't interfering with my ability to enjoy or report on the game like we do in these sessions, I think I'm going to stand by it.
Okay. There'll be some segment where a guy inexplicably gets turned into an old man and you'll have absolutely no clue that happened.
Yeah.
It's like the movie Howl's Moving Castle where Sophie,
oh yes,
surprisingly, name usage, her hair kind of wanes in between being youthful and old at any point, and you don't know why. It turns out it was just poorly optimized port. I'm kidding.
Shall we get into the title screen, Nate?
Yeah, title me.
Expedition 33 appears in a gilded font, kind of Art Deco, with each number 3 in a state of blowing away in the wind against a black background with flecks of something flying in the wind like burning pieces of campfire. The music is enchanting and dramatic, female vocals, classical violin. Again, here we are, Lorient Testard, Alice Dupont-Percier, about to blow our minds. There are 3 difficulties that you can select. There's story, which is the elementary, the easy mode, let's say. Expeditioner, which is the intended difficulty where mastering dodges and parries is encouraged, but not mandatory. And expert, which is demanding combat where enemies deal greater damage and mastering dodges and parries is required.
Required, yeah. I'm going with the middle of the road there because my timing is not the best.
I'm at Expeditioner and I'm feeling like dodges and parries are basically required.
They lied.
I guess I need to adjust my expectations or acknowledge the self-report of, we'll get to it, right?
Yeah.
Shall we hit start game?
Start it up.
Okay, so when we hit start, when we begin this game, there are a number of establishing shots of Paris in ruins, but supernaturally so. The Eiffel Tower is twisted and ripped in half, but the ripped off part is hovering in the air above the rest of the tower, still on the ground. There's some huge structure reaching out at the city from a great distance away, but its form is mostly obscured by clouds. The Arc de Triomphe is also ripped in half, and its pillars are tilted away from each other. And between them, also a great distance away, a huge 2-digit number glows ominously in the great distance in front of us. The number 34. So the purpose of an arch, rhetorically, it's a metaphor of a portal. You're in one side and you pass through it, and you're on the other side. And when you Napoleon or pick your favorite dictator or world leader, when they build these monuments that have holes in them, what they're saying is we're going through a new age. And when you go through an arch that is ripped in half and the arches are broken and tipped away from one another, let's say that the expectation of the new age is off. We've got a new age where the portal's broken.
Right.
There's also a solar eclipse in the sky, and the sky is filled with hundreds of floating pieces of debris or even chunks of city. It's crazy. Nate, what's your gut take? What did you see or what did you feel as you're absorbing these shots?
You gave this sense of everything's like frozen statically in time, like almost like you're in a time bubble of sorts. So it's interesting to know that time plays such a prominent role in the narrative of this game of you're running out of time, it's your time, etc. when their world seems to not be reacting in that way. Like these things, for however long this catastrophe, we will learn later, but however long this catastrophe has been going on, really hasn't moved or changed. And the second thing I kind of noticed the game will elaborate on this in a little bit here, the presence of the paintress and all that. But I noticed previously as well of the way in which the Eiffel Tower is twisted isn't necessarily like, let's say, gravity bent it or someone tore it from its, or like bent it with their hands or something. The way in which it's kind of twisted has this almost like this flow to it. And it gave me this perception of like, if I zoomed out from this whole thing and looked at it as if it were a painting, the destruction kind of takes the form of somebody that had their painting, the oils are still wet, and then they just took a brush and started going over it and smearing sections of it. So that's kind of what the destruction reads to me, is almost like it isn't like an earthquake or a moon running into the planet or anything like that. It almost seems like a stroke was made and then the destruction is left in that form of that. That's how the brush was cast across it. And once the brush left the canvas, everything stopped. And that's how it's going to be. It's not going to fall. It's not actively being bent more each year. That's kind of what I took away from the scene.
Gorgeous, Nate. Our protagonist is also looking at the giant glowing 34 a great distance away from a terrace in the heart of the city. This is Gustav. He is dressed in a dark blue suit with a matching vest, all of which have gold accents. He's got a white collared button-down shirt and a matching dark blue tie. He looks like he's in his mid-30s. He has a tousle of thick brown hair and has a chevron-style mustache, but the rest of his facial hair is half grown out too, which makes him look sort of handsomely nonchalant without looking unkempt or rugged. This is my take. He looks great in that suit, by the way, and it's doing a lot for him. Nate, I want to take you back to the Sandfall Interactive team shot and recall Gustav and then have a look at our boy Guillaume Broche. It's the same guy, mostly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm noticing throughout a lot of the French development team, the kind of fuzzy mustache, beard patch kind of situation is very common. They don't seem like there's one guy that has a big beard, but most everyone else is kind of doing the little quaint facial hair fuzz situation that our hero Gustav has got going on as well.
Gustav hucks a rock towards the glowing number. Now, we realize that he's accompanied by another character, Maëlle, Maelle. She's younger by Gustav by 10 years or maybe more. Shorter, long red hair pulled back, black and white long sleeve top, black pants, black suspenders, and a red handkerchief around her neck.
Now, I'll add about Gustav previously. You mentioned he looks like he's in his mid-30s. The plot will reveal that to be a little bit younger than mid-30s to some degree. But if this were a character in a Final Fantasy game or Xenogears or whatever, he would absolutely be 57 years old.
Expedition 57. Maëlle acknowledges a flower and says, "You should probably do it before they wither and die." And Gustav says, "What, the flower or Sophie?" And Maëlle goes, "Oh, dark. Sophie would approve."
If you're going to give someone flowers, you should probably do it before they wither and die.
What, the flower or Sophie?
Ooh, dark. Sophie would approve.
We're ignorant about what's going on, but we'll find out that through the course of the prologue here, or perhaps the whole game, the dialogue is very sharp, and there are layers to what everybody's saying because nobody's very honest with their feelings so far, or at least that's my sense, Nate. I'll let you have your take in a hot second here. But the language that we say is all like indirect, or we're only revealing glimmers of how we actually feel or what we're ready to acknowledge. And that comes out in a variety of ways. We get hit with black humor immediately, which is awesome. I'm all for it. But it isn't just black humor that's going to come out in the dialogue we're going to have in between now and, well, I guess God knows when. I suppose this is a throughput to the end of the game.
Yeah, I realized the first kind of playthrough where we play tested this to see if we wanted to make a season out of it. That initial playthrough was 2 months ago. So I replayed the intro here for our note-taking purposes, and there were a lot of moments where maybe not even from the character's perspective, but my knowledge as a player, I'm like, wow, the way they're phrasing things is like incredibly foreshadowing.
Yes.
Winking and nodding at things to come. And so that was kind of a nice little treat. But also, I think they're doing a good job of they're delivering exposition without it being so on the nose that that's what they're doing, because they're telling us about things that are going to happen and they're doing it in ways that sound natural to the people discussing them. There's a couple cracks in that as they're recounting relationships later between what is seemingly like a teenage girl and this older guy, where it's like, you shouldn't be talking about that with her, but it's like you kind of realize like, oh, that's for the sake of us, the player, knowing that, not necessarily that he wants to have these in-depth romantic conversations with a teenager. But that said, I feel like it's all very natural, and there isn't these moments of like you getting tutorialized and being like, why are you telling me this? My character is not a complete moron. They do a good job.
They do a good job. And as players, we're drip-fed exposition in a very starved sort of way, whilst also being bewildered by the environments and the supernatural things laid on top of the city. It's masterful and really different than JRPGs, where they might conduct yourselves and describe things a little more literally and obviously.
Right.
But anyways, Gustav is due to help set up a festival happening later today, but he doesn't want to attend. Mael jokes about his accuracy with his throwing arm, suggesting to throw it with the other arm to hit the paintress, and he looks at that hand, and we realize he has a mechanical hand sticking out of one of his sleeves of his suit. I didn't notice it at first playthrough that we acknowledged the hand at that moment. That was only when I was re-looking at the footage. But Gustav says, hobbies don't have to be useful. I'm enjoying the uselessness of today and readying my usefulness for tomorrow. He's being a little glib in the phrasing. And then he gets grim and he says, and then soon we'll do a lot more than just throw rocks. Mael feels grim too and says, well, that's what they all say, referring to, I guess, other expeditions. Gustav checks her, says, hey, you know they gave their lives to lay the trail for us, right? And so what we're learning now, again, we're being drip-fed exposition. We know he's going on an expedition, or at least he aims to. It's not the first expedition of its kind. There is inference that prior expeditions may not have succeeded, and Mael has a bleak outlook on the one that Gustav's going to go on. But Gustav would rather talk about Sophie. So after 4 years apart, what do I say to her on the day of her gamage? And we don't know what gamage is, and I looked it up, and I think I'll share it later. But we must be talking about Sophie. And that's when we're cut loose. But before we're cut loose, Nate, let's talk about voices.
Voices. I'm not going to talk about every single voice in the game, but there are a couple notable ones so far for me here in our first session. Gustav is played by Charlie Cox, who is famous for a lot of things, but he was the starring role in a movie called Stardust in 2007.
Oh, Stardust is so good.
Okay, you like it.
I do. It's not a perfect movie, but if you liked Princess Bride, you'd probably like Stardust.
Have you seen a fallen star anywhere? We're in a crater. This must be where it fell.
Yeah, this is where I fell.
You're the star. You're the star?
Right, exactly. And I like the movie too, but it is, I have found, for whatever reason, a quintessential girls love this shit movie. So, yeah. And like I said, I like it too, but there's just something about whatever he's giving out there into the ether throughout those 2 hours of footage that girls just lap it up. They love it. So definitely kind of a heartthrob, and I would say his voice encapsulates that. Since then, he's gone on to play Daredevil on screen in both Netflix TV shows, but now also Disney movies and TV series proper. That career is ongoing. Daredevil's not done by any means, so he is still working on that actively, and he kind of has a pedigree of working in British theater, trained in Britain and everything. So a lot of people know him as having an American accent due to the Daredevil character, but he is actually a Brit, and you will hear that throughout this game. Second, for Mael, the other character we mentioned here, played by Jennifer English. Now, not a huge career, not a name you may have heard in several video games, but most notably for me, she is the character of Shadowheart in Baldur's Gate 3.
Everything sounds good when I say it.
Which I already shared to kind of have a connection there. So it must be these indie studios looking for what I would consider like a upper tier of talent that isn't necessarily big names. They found her as well, in addition to Baldur's Gate. It's kind of strange for me hearing her as a teenage girl, because I've spent dozens, maybe hundreds of hours with her being the voice of my beloved in Baldur's Gate. And I say that as like game choices, not just me as a gamer fanboying over her. You can actually choose a partner in that game, or several if you can work it out that they don't get mad at each other. So I feel like her voice is able to bring a lot of grit and like personality and kind of, at least in the character of Shadowheart, there's just this inherent anguish she brought to her performance. And it's funny, a little tangent is that during the development of that game, when it was like in open beta, people complained that they hated her character because she was just way too mean. She was an asshole.
Really?
And it was kind of intentional because the developer wanted it to be this like band of misfits that really didn't like each other. But certain people felt like they just went way too far when it came to her. So they toned her down a little bit. But the thing I love about that character is that a lot of games give you this like, choose the evil or good side. And then it's like, you have this decision wheel where it's kill baby or pet puppy. The choices are very extreme in Baldur's Gate, but there's a lot more nuance to her character of like, you could basically build her into an evil villain who still ends up saving the world because that aligns with her goals of, you know, you don't want to be an evil villain ruling a piece of shit. You want to be a bad guy who has a world that can aptly fall under your heel, or you can make her a good guy. And that's about as much as I can say without massive spoilers. Maybe I already did. It was just an incredible journey, and so to hear her again, it's kind of comforting in a way.
Fantastic. I really appreciated the voice acting that I've heard so far. And you're right to say Mael has I want to say more than just grim, but a wise beyond her years, but younger than you might suspect. In
a tinge of melancholy.
You know, we're all pretty melancholy. Never mind the supernatural events of the catastrophe, but there is a spell of worry and melancholy cast over this beautiful town or city here. But moving on. So we get a title card. Prologue. Lumiere. Lumiere. And we'll find out that this is the name of the city, but it's also Paris. And I just wanted to share that I'm aware that a nickname of the city, with sobriquet, I suppose, if we're being Frenchy, is the City of Light, and Lumiere means light. And so maybe they've colloquially renamed this city. Maybe it was actually Paris, but now that since it's been damaged or transformed, or the headspace of all of its citizens is so different now, we look at ourselves as Lumiere. And let's talk about Clair Obscur. I mentioned in the description of the art discipline that it is an exercise in contrast of light and darkness. The name of this city is light itself.
Not that we live in France, but we understand this a little bit ourselves because we live in Clearwater, Tyler.
Yes, we do.
What I'm saying is the name of our town, Eau Claire, is French and it means clear water.
Yes, that's right.
Eau Clair Obscur.
Eau Clair Obscur. Too true, Nate. The best drinking water ever. Just don't look at the super fun site north of town. Okay, wow. So now we're taking control of Gustav, and what a lovely view. We're looking at the terrace that he was casting rocks out over. We can see the 34 in the distance. Mael's next to us. We have the option. I don't know if it's an option, but there's the red flower we've been talking about. A flower for Sophie. So we're navigating these rooftops, following Mael to where? I guess the party. I guess we're expecting to intercept Sophie along the way. Tall golden age buildings, giant pieces of earth floating in the sky. We're recognizing that this is a city in recovery from a supernatural catastrophe from many years ago, where the scars of the event are still very visible. The city also looks like it's healing over, with visible signs of the community's efforts to bring normalcy back to their lives, as evidenced by beautiful flower beds, steampunky windmills, pennant streamers strung between buildings and over our heads as we follow Mael across the rooftops, and flowers. Red flowers. There's planter boxes of them. They're scattered in the streets. It is, in spite of the catastrophe and this pall of melancholy that everyone seems to be under, it is very romantic, and again leaning into the golden age of France that Sandfall Interactive is trying to project.
Right.
Ruminating nylon string guitar music. I love it.
I noticed that there's a lighthouse that's bent, kind of arced in the direction towards where the painter's island is, or whatever you want to call it. And this also again gives me that same sensation of This is a smeared item, not necessarily like it got hit by a rock and got broken in half. It almost looks like the object itself has been warped in its physical space it occupies.
That's interesting. Yeah, appropriating the painting principles to the damage. Very cool. There are posters on the walls as we go by, and I translated, there are 4 of them that I could see with legible writing. I was able to translate 3 of them, and some of them are kind of striking and foreboding, and I'd love to run. I'm not going to read the French bit, but I'll just tell you the translation here. One says, "The story of the scavenger, the ochre eater." They look like show posters, like things that are paper mache to like a brick wall and to advertise something being played at a theater nearby. The next one, "The paintress is looking at you."
Interesting.
Yes. So this one might be a recruitment poster because it's inspiring fear in consequences of ignorance of the paintress, who does have their eyes on you, but maybe you can't bear to look back. The third one I could read is called Tales of the Siren. And I wondered, after reading this one or translating this one, I wondered if we're able to appropriate any siren mythology to the paintress.
I wonder if, story of ochre eater, tale of the siren, I wonder if these are going to be like side characters or bosses or minions of the painter of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And then the paintress is looking at you. I actually found, we can mention him later, a paintress worshiper milling about the crowd. And Gustav says to just ignore him. He's a psycho. But it almost seems like the poster, you could kind of picture a painting of like Jesus with his finger pointed at you and being like, Jesus is watching. don't do anything bad, so maybe that's more the angle. Instead of a recruitment poster, maybe it's put up by some fanatic.
Oh, that's interesting. All right, yeah, nicely played there.
Don't jerk off, paintress is watching.
Oh, God. Partway through the rooftops, Mael wants to duel, maybe to blow off some steam. Gustav doesn't want to, but it is our tutorial to battle, so we must. And she baits him by saying, "I'll give you something you can use with your Lumina converter." And we don't know what that is yet, but that sounds pretty cool. A Lumina converter. Light, again, another light vocabulary word. Nate, are you recalling the battle music?
Yes.
What do you think about it?
I think it did a good job of, it let me know, okay, it's fight time, but it didn't feel like it was at odds with it was like a ramping up in a similar style of the music we were actively listening to that was kind of lowly droning on. And it's, to me, different than when in old school RPGs you'd be walking through a forest hearing da 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 da, and then all of a sudden bam 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 dan 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 dan. So it ramped up the energy without pulling me out of where we were and what we were doing. It just kind of transitioned smoothly, in my opinion.
Yes, that's my feeling as well. It's symphonic, but it has this like stomp to it that I really appreciated. And it reminded me of the Final Fantasy 13 battle music.
Right.
I mean, it's all high energy and because the stakes are high and violence is whirling around us. But the Final Fantasy 13 base battle music was very violin forward and symphonic in scope, while still also like embodying the soul of what your expectations are for that kind of track in an OST. And I knew, and Sandfall was going to have their interpretation of it, and I thought it went over really, really well. Loved it.
We never got around to doing that Final Fantasy 13 days versus 13 years recording we had thought of.
I remember that. Let's talk about the battle. So it is a turn-based battle system, and there is a battle wheel that kind of explodes out the side of the selected character in a similar sort of way as the Persona series. I have not played very much of any Persona games, but you look at it and you recognize it because if it's just that recognizable.
Stylish.
Yeah, it is stylish, where the menus are not sitting in the lower quarter of your screen or anything. It's flying out the side of the character at a funny angle in a dramatic way while they're looking at their target here. The battle wheel has options of attack, aim, skill, and item. Skills cost AP. You gain AP by parrying or performing a base attack. Parrying every hit of an enemy's attack triggers a powerful counterattack if you can pull it off. However, there's dodging and perfect dodges. I was surprised you can spam dodges, but not that I don't think it does you any good.
Yeah.
But you can do it if you please. Gustav looks pretty funny doing it, but I freaking sucked at this. I did not. So when I say like dodging and parrying feels like it's required at intermediate mode, that I learned that here, and I learned it at the next encounter and the next encounter and the next encounter. And then I started getting a sense of every encounter is deadly serious.
We'll see if that pans out in the game proper, or if in the heat of teaching you a mechanic, they're like, we should probably make sure they understand what the fuck's going on by making them actually do it here.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll go over Gustav's skills really quickly. Any character can equip up to 8 skills. I'm not going to get into how you build out skills right now, but the 2 that Gustav comes with. Well, firstly, I want to say that base attacks and skills build up stacks of charge, which affects the damage output of another skill called overcharge, which shoots lightning at a target. Actually, it fires from his mechanical hand, and the animation is fucking crazy. He raises his hand up to draw energy, then leaps into the air with an exploding fist of electricity, and then punches Bael in the face with giant electrical bolts of energy, like racing behind her through like the force of the inertia of the smash.
Mm-hmm.
So that's his like finisher move, but the one that builds out his finisher is called Lumiere Assault, which issues a series of physical blows, and if any of them crit, it also builds charge.
Right. And if you are full on charge, they will put a graphic on the side of your screen with like a red electricity glowing robot arm of yours. Made me think of Samus Aran being corrupted with Phazon, but red this time, and just basically like, this guy's about to fucking blow. You better use this attack, telegraphing that to the player.
Mm-hmm. It was interesting to me that Mael's weapon she's got like a fencing foil. The motion of her strikes has a long comet's tail to it. I don't know how to describe it. Like the flash of the blade as you swing it leaves like a spell effect that looks like paint like streaks.
Sure.
And that's probably a marriage of 2 ideas in gameplay. It's well, leaning into the painting motif of the game, but also probably to help players recognize when is the sweet spot in which to dodge or parry.
Yeah, I think that is the communication of this move is active. Like if someone is winding up their attack, that graphic isn't present. And then if it's like you are able to dodge it, then it is present. So yeah, you're right.
How many times did it take you?
I did it the first time, dog.
I bet you did.
I came off of just playing some Street Fighter, so
oh shit.
I'm prepared. I've got my eyeballs wide open here.
We eventually get to Sophie, and she's a lady about as old as Gustav, maybe a hair older. She's got a white blouse with red polka dots tucked into a long red pleated skirt, a red beret, and a garland of red flowers around her neck. She has a lot of red on her, which matches the color of all the flowers and the flower petals blowing in the wind that we've seen so far in the game. So you might say like whatever the color represents, she is also embodying it metaphorically. Neither Sophie nor Gustav can speak honestly with one another. There's some baggage left over from their breakup of so many years ago that they're still sort of contending with, that's interfering with their ability to speak very clearly with one another. Or maybe that's just a French thing, or maybe it's a consequence of, the melancholy that we all feel. It isn't exactly clear. Maybe it's all of it. And he hands her the rose, or the flower. She says, "Why now? It's a little late, isn't it?" I'm paraphrasing here. But she does accept the flower, and she admits that she misses him. And my sense is that they broke up maybe because he was committed to this expedition, which she maybe looked at as a suicide mission, but honors his effort to solve it anyways, or to be part of it. I have a quote from her saying, "I never faulted you for wanting to believe in the success of an expedition. You're fighting to change things."
Yeah, I think what I perceived from discussions throughout the period of this is that the reason their relationship ended was he was interested in having children to create a next generation.
Oh.
And that's a very common theme there are people you'll talk to that it's like, basically, where's your kid? Why didn't you ever have a kid? And Sophie's shunned a little bit for that reason. And she is very much of the opinion of like, why bring someone else into this situation that they're in? when there's no hope. Kind of what you said, like with the expedition and him saying soon we'll be doing more than throwing rocks and wanting to have kids and everything. He seems like, despite the kind of somberness of this entire opening, he seems like an optimist and she seems like a realist. And that's maybe what pulled their relationship apart.
Fair play. Nice. We take control of Sophie, surprisingly, and we take Gustav to the harbor, strangely enough. There's red flowers everywhere. She says, I'm fine. We've lived 33 good years. We've had our whole lives to prepare. We're all fine. Mostly fine. And then Gustav, I'm not fine. I love it.
I've lived 33 good years. Look around. We've had our whole lives to prepare. We're all fine. Mostly.
I'm not fine.
You will be.
The forces being applied on these characters, or the city, the shared generational trauma that everybody has, leaks out in these little cracks.
Right. And we haven't expressly discussed the mechanics of what's happening here just yet. But when you think about it, those who do know about it, it's like this trauma that they're experiencing or about to experience. This was happening in the past to people who were in their 70s, their 60s, their 50s. But now it's happening to people who haven't really lived their life out to its fullest extent yet, or to, start those families, have those experiences to those degrees. And so it becomes progressively more traumatic each time it happens. So yeah, as we're kind of approaching the ceremony, we get a walk through town here. First thing I notice is there's a man with a pickaxe hacking away at what looks like teal/obsidian rock. The color kind of changes in the light as you change the camera perspective. And it covers the ground and is streaming down buildings nearby. As you continue your journey, you'll find it's like bursting out of homes out the windows. So I wonder, I don't know what to think of it, but if it's bursting out of the homes, only thing I can really think is it some sort of people, like the Parasite Eve blob made out of people, like bursting out of things? Because, or again, we don't know the mechanics of this yet, but maybe the first one, when you've got a city filled with millions, is an especially explosive, traumatic experience, as it's not just, well, I guess those people would have to be extremely old. The first, whatever, we'll figure it out later, but I'm sure this will be explained. But as I go through it, I look at it, some of these, like as it goes higher, some of this material looks more like stringy, like it's dripping down between scaffolding in between houses. And it almost looks like, it makes me think of, again, we're in painting mindset here, makes me think of like acrylic paints, because the second you squeeze them out of their tube, they're very moist and liquid and drippy. But if you leave that on your canvas for a significant amount of time, it will turn into like a clumpy clay of sorts. And so I did a lot of looking around town to see if I can figure out what this is, but it's mostly the same thing. But when it's on the ground, a man is hacking at it with a pickaxe, and it is hard. So he's gathering it up into a cart, God knows why. And then I noticed there's an item on a stacked on a ledge, and this introduces me to jumping and the fact that my character will actually pull himself up to ledges. This ledge is a stacked pile of 4x4 planks of wood, and Gustav's feet do that tech thing where like the character is trying to like adjust themselves so their feet will perch on something and not just like clip through it. And so just leaving him standing there as I'm taking this very note, he proceeds to do a number of lunges, like squats, that definitely make it look like his balls are stuck to his legs and he's trying to part them without using his hands, because Sophie's probably watching. He's doing that ball squat.
Yeah. Okay.
We find there's a piano with an X to play prompt, and my head is spinning. We just left Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I'm like, no, not a piano minigame. And I press the X button, and it does not slip into a different screen or bring up a tutorial. It just goes ding. I'm like, oh, thank God. So if you mash that X button, it starts playing the very theme song you're listening to in the moment. And then the opposite end of that panel, there's a woman sitting alone, surrounded by planters filled with the red and white flowers, and the same that are hanging around Sophie's neck. And she's got one of those wreaths around her neck as well. And so I'd say the game is telling me like this is an especially adored or like revered, beautiful woman, but she's alone. And she also kind of has generic NPC face that isn't particularly beautiful or stunning. And so she's just sitting there humming, surrounded by her pots of red and white flowers with no one around. So I'm not sure what I'm supposed to read from this woman, what that situation is. And then lastly, there's somebody who doesn't believe in the expedition. And so Sophie has me beat the shit out of a balloon to prove her wrong. And this is the like perfecting your overcharge mechanic. You got to build it up. You got to hit that timing with the A button to get your charges and then release the overcharge to blow up the balloon. The balloon will not be felled by standard attacks. And so after you do that, the girl just like, oh, that guy is strong. And her mind is completely changed. Maybe the ability to blow up a balloon is exactly what they've been missing in the expedition this entire time. So yeah, that's what I got so far.
Oh, golly.
I have one more note about the area, but I'll let you interject.
Oh, sure. So there's a lot of fun things to check out as we're headed out into there. We passed by a station seeking recruits for the next expedition. Sophie says the number of people volunteering is going down every year. Sophie also acknowledges some sexy sounds coming from a building nearby and muses that not everyone participates in the living wake or goes to the harbor for the gamage. Some prefer more intimate goodbyes, suggesting that, well, it's contextualizing what a gamage is. We still don't know what it is. I haven't translated for myself just yet. And some people would rather go out with a blast rather than in the shared ritual that this community participates in called a gamage, whatever the gamage is.
I did not see that scene.
No?
I did not find it.
If you ever play through it again, keep left in the lane. Remember, it's a building to the left.
Okay. There's a kind of town square area. There's a few of these, but this one seems more town square-y than the others. Sophie said there's a woman named Luna's playing. She's playing a guitar. She's up on a perch in front of a statue, I believe. And Sophie says, you two would make a great couple, or maybe something already happened.
Oh, yeah.
That energy of when your not girlfriend is suggesting other partners for you. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, Tyler. You're spending a lot of time with a girl and she's trying to tell you otherwise by suggesting other women to you.
No, I don't think that's happened to me.
Okay. And to be fair, I've been very successful in my love life. This is not like a bragging thing or whatever, but just inevitably you will find some duds in that quest for the one. And maybe once or twice that dud has expressed that maybe you should be looking elsewhere. But I think Luna is incredibly cool looking. She has black hair. She's wearing a black trench coat with silver trim. We will come to learn this is indicative of the expedition itself. And she has these gold, silver etchings on her skin. She sits there playing her guitar barefoot. That is not of particular interest to me. It's just a striking image and nothing beyond that. I get the impression she listens to Bowie or whatever French equivalent of Bowie there is. I'm sure French people listen to Bowie.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Yeah. I don't know if you sat to listen on what she's playing. Do you have an inkling on what you think is in her playlist?
I don't remember the song. I'll have to come back and have a look.
Okay. This is a pretty great character. Luna, Moon, obviously pretty simple naming convention there. And I haven't played too much of the game so far here, but there will be a moment where there will be like an aha moment for me involving this character that I will explain later.
I can't wait, Nate. Also on our way, a painter, not the paintress, a street painter who probably resents the paintress occupying his the context of his trade, wants to preserve Sophie's energy onto a canvas that could hang in the city opera house. But what really has to happen is a dodge tutorial fight. So we're going to preserve her energy by engaging in a fight where I'm just going to dodge now. And you cannot pass until you dodge her 3-hit combo a few times. For the love of God, I've heard this painter guy say, come on, dodge your lady's beautiful moves a billion times.
Come on, dodge your lady's beautiful moves.
Because he does it every time and it grates at me. And I know I got to get good, but fuck that guy.
Yeah. So the painting he makes of them is them dancing. This is the equivalent of the dodge, is like a dance in the combat. And it just ever so slightly reminds me of the night before my wedding. My wife and I actually had a friend of hers that is a dance instructor try and help us out. And I have a crippling disability. And so after showing her how I move and the way my body works, she's like, oh, okay, well, let's just try this instead when it came to our dance. And I'm wondering if you maybe felt that way about your dance with Sophie.
No.
You might need to just try this instead. The game won't let you, though.
Well, I guess I would go to easy mode then.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. We swap characters back to Gustav for the last leg, and we meet Maxime. I don't know the translation. Maxime. He's a defeatist, a drunk, who tells us we're a dumbass in the face of the paintress's wrath. Yeah.
His wife is gone. His daughter is at home crying, and he's there getting drunk. If you ever feel like you're a bad dad, you're not this bad.
Probably not. We also acknowledge a normal trash can, and I don't know why.
Oh, I do know why. There are several normal trash cans in the area, but if you find one where the text is slightly different, where they're like a normal trash can, and if you keep clicking on it, you will find the trash can man. Did you find the trash can man, Tyler?
No, I'm reading your note here, and I'm beside myself. I did not see this, Nate.
I'm not making this up. There's a man that's hiding in a trash can for 6 months because his theory is that the paintress won't know he's there. And I don't know how he eats or even fits inside the trash can. But at the end of your discussion with him to shoo off and not alert her to his presence, he notices that there's an item poking in his ass and he gives it to us. It's one of those chroma thingamajiggers or whatever.
You wish chroma was a rock or resin. It's dildo material.
I don't know if it's protruding into a cheek or if literally this was some prison pocket situation here.
Prison pocket. I love it. Another interesting tidbit in the conversation Sophie and Gustav are having as they walk here is Sophie tries to empathize with the paintress, which is kind of hard for us to do. We're still getting acquainted with what this even is, but we feel like everyone considers her a threat, a major threat. She says she looks sad, stuck in the same cycle with us. And Gustav says, only you could choose empathy at a time like this. And Sophie says, because I can choose to, meaning she doesn't feel very free, but this is a choice that she can still make. A choice to be empathetic. Gustav recognizes a crowd gathered to watch the gamage in a show of solidarity, and we join in. We recognize that people partaking in the gamage wear flower garlands, and, well, Sophie's got one around her neck. Red garlands.
This is where I found that painter or paintress worshiper preaching that this whole process is a punishment for all the evil sins they've been partaking in, yada, yada, yada. And Gustav just writes him off, says, all right, ignore this dipshit. Mm-hmm. And then further on behind him, I find a mime. And did you find this guy?
No. You make me want to replay this prologue, Nate. You've picked up on like 4 things I did not see.
So yeah, there's a mime and you get into combat with him because he comes swinging at Sophie. And so Gustav has to battle him. And immediately the mime does his like hands on a wall thing and a big invisible wall graphic shows up. Like he's got extra defenses because of his imaginary wall.
Oh, Nate, I did run into a mime in chapter 1.
Okay.
This is sounding familiar.
This is the stun mechanic tutorial that an enemy in the middle of casting something extraordinary, if you use your overcharge, there may be some whiplash to using a special ability on them during that. And so he gets stunned if you build up overcharge. But the first time I played this guy, I got my ass absolutely kicked because he will just run in and like 3 or 4 hits per turn, beat the ever-living shit out of you. So I eventually did get my payback and learn the fight, but he is brutal. For an optional fight in the very first prologue that can kill you, almost like a mini Omega in a way. Mm-hmm. I was very intrigued. Now, other people that are good with their timing would say, mini Omega, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm going to say, he's tough. He's not easy. But it's good mechanics.
So we're headed into the harbor, and as we go in, the sun is setting, and people are gathering, and we're about to engage in this ceremony. and we encounter a point of no return prompt. The prologue of the game has a point of no return prompt. And the prompt says, the paintress will awaken soon and the gamage will start. Do you want to head to the harbor? And I don't even know what I'm about to experience, but I am extremely engaged.
Right.
And curious. And we say yes. We say, here we go. And first thing is a trio of kids bring Gustav a coat which Sophie bought him. And she says, legacy can take many forms. You taught me that, referring to inspiring the kids are called the apprentices, referring to inspiring the so-called apprentices. Well, why? Well, I wanted to see you wearing it. I want you to wear this coat. And it's pretty badass. And it honors his commitment to the expedition. It has a shoulder patch, for lack of better phrasing, of 33, the number 33, which I guess is emblematic of his expedition. After all, it is the title of the game. When Nate and I talk about things that we're witnessing, do we do it with the ignorance of knowing that much at that point of the game? We're not doing the full spectrum understanding like we have in the prior season and a half. And so I'm 33. I know it means the Expedition 33 because it's the name of the game. Anyways, this too is your legacy, says Sophie. And Gustav says, in a way, it's yours too. As in, you live on through this coat. She's also living on in the painting with that might hang in the opera house. I thought was pretty neat.
Right.
Dramatic piano music heightens, and then they hold hands.
And just to quickly say what I said earlier about them having a kid, yada, yada. It seems like even though that didn't happen, they both have a sense of leaving something behind. So, I mean, these orphans that she's teaching how to sew and that she's passed on her values to, even if she isn't having a kid, she sees an immediate need with the next generation regardless. Mm-hmm. If she's this realist and he's the optimist, it's almost like in a way these two are giving a concession to each other of he's saying, yeah, we didn't have kids, but I see that you have left something behind regardless. And then she's saying, I don't believe necessarily in building this future. Maybe I don't believe the same things you do, but I want to see you in your uniform. It's meaningful to me to see that, to remember you like this, to remember you that you're different than me. And like, I want to see you as you, not a reflection of myself. And so I thought that was very beautiful that they essentially both leaned into each other in that moment.
And Nate, I got to say, I hadn't appreciated the perspective that their breakup might have been about children. And because they didn't have an awareness of that perspective, I didn't project that situation onto the three apprentices.
Right.
Where maybe they are like children. Well, of course they're children, but like his kids. He's mentoring them, and maybe even just calling them apprentices is leaning into the indirect scripting of the game where we don't say the full story. We only give you little glimmers and cracks of light. So that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd say just maybe go do a quick replay through. You probably knock it out in 30 minutes if you just not skip the dialogue, but like read the dialogue and then just click A instead of listening to the full run of the voice acting. And I definitely picked up a bunch more my second time.
And then a video plays. A half-sunset solar eclipse settles behind the enormous spires of rock that show the glowing number 34, a great distance away. A passionate woman's voice sings over symphonic music, and then something lying below the glowing number slowly rouses to its feet. The sky goes black, and all we can see is the glowing number 34 on the cliff illuminating the paintress, who's made to look difficult to define except that she's wearing a featureless gray robe and a head of gray hair. Her back's turned to us predominantly. There are some things lying on the ground in front of her, and I'm not clear what they are. They could be cans of paint or they could be skyscrapers. Honestly, I don't understand the scale of this shot. And I think that's okay. A lot of this is ambiguous on purpose. She wipes the glowing number off and with a wave of her hand prints the number 33 in its place. Back at the harbor, almost everyone but Gustav and Sophie disintegrate into a gentle cloud of red petals and dust. Mothers part from their children. Siblings and lovers part from each other. The petals blow into the city from the harbor past Mael. Gustav says, I'm here. Sophie in tears says, I know. And then she 2 disintegrates into dust and red petals, which gently waft through Gustav and away. Gustav fixes his eye on the glowing number 33 in the distance and drops to a knee in a shot that centers him below the glowing number in the middle of the black halo formed by the solar eclipse, fading to black. Oh, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it all over again.
Yeah. Do you want to react to this now, or kind of just like have that be the ending, and then
let's capture this. Let's.
Okay.
No, I'm going to acknowledge this. So, like,
okay,
that was. I found that to be emotionally powerful. I feel like it's funny to me because I've got like my eyes kind of well, and you can hear like the timbre of my voice change. And it's because like I feel like so invested already.
Mm-hmm.
Devastating, beautiful, and we've only scratched the surface. It's so exciting. Excuse me. I don't know why I'm behaving like this, but like I have to recognize the emotional gravity of the situation and honor that by saying Sandfall has shown me the stakes and has shown me what the gamage is now, which translates, by the way, to the word scrub.
Right.
And without getting into the analysis of what the gamage is, I think we'll leave that for next time. Recognizing the visuals and the music and the marriage of the characterization and the dialogue and the cinematography, the way the petals blow over Gustav and through the city past Mael. Masterful.
Dare I say, and I don't mean this in the previous 2 seasons of our content, but more so in a 1990s sense. I think we both are kind of having a Aerith moment here.
Yeah, I suppose so. Someone embodying the goodness or well, shoot, I guess I need to think more on that before I just riff on it. But yeah, we've hardly known her, but we're beside ourselves already, having lost her 20 minutes after meeting her.
I have some more observations about this process, but I think we need to learn more about it, learn more about the mechanics, which will be shared shortly here in kind of after scene that we'll get through next time. But I want to say that it's something that like we are joining in at this process in kind of the peak of its importance, because like I said, once we learn about this, if it were happening to old people, that's one thing. And then there will be a point where like this process won't even happen at all in the future based on the mechanics of it. But here it's kind of right in the sweet spot of like, you're 30 something and you've gotten through all the bullshit of being a teenager. You start to get your life together. You've defined who you are. Your brain has stopped smushing itself into an identity and you're gone. So
interesting.
You're one of these people where, because of the circumstances of your birth, when it happened and how it happened and where it happened, you don't really get to have a life. And that's something that, I don't want to sound uber depressing or whatever, but I've struggled with in recent years, looking at the conditions of the world around me, and also struggled with as a father, knowing I want to give a bright and wonderful future to my child, as yet I look around and be like, this isn't the world I grew up in anymore. And so that's where it kind of strikes me as these people kind of being, what's the word again? What does gamage mean?
Scrub.
These people kind of being scrubbed away in the absolute beginning of not the beginning of their life, but their beginning of their maturity and the promise of what life should be.
Excellent take, Nate. Excellent. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will finish the prologue and start Chapter 1 next episode. This has been a production of Gunblade Guys. Please think about liking us, subscribing to us, 5-starring us, writing a review about us, and telling a fellow game liker about us as well. If you love this show, or just kind of like this show, someone you know probably would just kind of like this show, or love this show too. Join the conversation with fellow fans on Discord, where you can find a link to find that in our show notes. If you feel like leaving a gratuity, you can find a link to tip us, if you please, in the show notes as well. Catch us on Twitch and YouTube under the name Gunblade Guys, and email us at gunbladeguys@gmail.com. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. I'm Nate. Whoa.
You're Tyler. Yeah, recently I've done, for a video that I'm still working on, I've done no less than like 12 playthroughs of the classic 90s Resident Evil 2 game.
Oofta.
And, you know, jumping back into it, I'm one of these people that I got to pick up every green herb and put that in my bin if I need it later.
Here with 1,000 green herbs.
You're right. And by the end of it, now that I'm on like playthrough number 12 for the footage I want, I do not fucking touch a single green herb because I'm like, nope, don't need you. Don't need you. Because I know I get to the end of the game and I've got a box full of like 20 of them. So it rings through in many genres of games that we hoard those curative items. Episode title?
Could be. I was thinking... The paintress is looking at you.
Yeah.
But that's awful pretty, though. Ah, shit. Damn it. I'm falling in love with your idea. Okay. Let's say A Flower for Sophie is the one to beat.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm doing something nice instead of trying to make a joke out of it for once.
Yeah. I as you know, I bebop between jokes and getting serious and unintelligible brain rot.
This is essentially, you can cut this, but this is essentially a funeral episode, so I'm not sure if I want to drop a sick-ass funeral joke.
Yeah. Well, they make funeral jokes.
Sure, that's true.
Ooh, doc. Ooh, doc. We do what we must to keep our head on straight. I'm getting attacked by a fucking fly. Oh, my God.
No.
Oh, okay. Get out of here, you fucking fly. Ever seen the Angriest RV Salesman?
No, I haven't.
All right, I'll hook you up later. Happy Friday, Nate.
Happy, I don't know, do you still have leaves on the trees by your house?
Yes, I do.
I'm debating on whether this is like some sort of global warming thing or if I'm just being paranoid of, I would think that in November the leaves are all off the trees, typically.
Typically, yeah.
A Friday in November it is over here. We are in the same city.
Yes, we are.
Why are we even doing this remotely? What's the point?
Old habits die hard, and we're optimized as such.
Right. I don't know if perfected is the right word, but I'll just say it. We've perfected our mode of procuring recordings.
Even if you did come over here, I'd draw a big black curtain between us just to feel like the old times.
Have you ever seen that show Love is Blind?
No.
So it's like these people, they don't see each other. They date from a wall between them by just talking. And then they have to like get married a month later based on whether they loved the person they talked to. I mean, it works out maybe a couple times a season. A lot of times it happens where they meet each other, they see each other, and then they have to like this experience where like, can we go back to talking with the wall in between us?
No.
Because it was more comfortable then. And so I feel like you're creating that kind of scenario of we would get together and record a live podcast and you'll be like, can we go back to you being half a country away from me?
Yeah. Can you turn around for 45 minutes?
Right.